moron, the bee had it. So, people said to me, Spicy, can you make a video and explain to us what to look for when we are going to buy a second-hand bike? Now, this is a very difficult subject. Part of the main problem is your mechanical knowledge. If you have mechanical knowledge to understand what the way things should and shouldn't be, then you'll know this anyway. So, I'm going to just go through what I would look at on a bike if I was going to go and buy it. Kind of the things I looked at on DIVI, even though I kind of knew her before I bought her. Okay, so starting at the beginning. Before you even look at the bike, get the reg details, do a HPI check on it and make sure the thing hasn't got finance on it, it's not been stolen or written off or anything like that. It will cost you about about 3-4 quid. To get that, you can do it from text, use text from the reg. You want to look at the bike over itself, you know, look for any majorly cracked panels, any broken parts that you can see that are obviously being fixed or bodged. The reason I say that is because one cracked panel could cost you quite a lot of money, and it's a very good bargaining chip when it comes to selling the bike. Do your market research as well. Look around to see how much the bikes of the similar age and mileage are. And do keep in mind that in some years, like they will have put extra stuff into the bike, and suddenly it's worth a lot more. Whereas in other bikes, were kind of the same year on year. Like DRZs year on year are basically the exact same bike. Then you want to check it for oil and fluid leaks. So look around the cooling system, see if there's any leaks coming from here. Look underneath, see if there's any oil build-up. Now, you will get crap around the chain and stuff if they've been oiling their chain properly. That's another thing to say. Check the chain to see if it's been well maintained. It's a good clue as to if they've looked after the bike well. If it's correctly adjusted and it's not rusty and it's been lubed, they obviously do maintenance. Check the oil. Make sure that looks relatively clear, or at least not jet black gunk with big lumps in it. If you can see through the spy hole, that will help you, or a dipstick if possible. Look for rust in like the swing arm, look for rust on major components, look for anything that looks like, you know, it might be a bit dodgy, because these are the things that are going to come up as an MOT. So then checking individual parts, well, I'd start at the front. I'd check the brake discs and see if they've got a big ridge on the outside here, which will kind of give you a clue that they might not be long before they need replacing. They will have a minimum thickness. You can check that if you really wanted to, if you've got some verniers with you, but I doubt you're going to do that. Look down, see if you can see the pads, see if they have got plenty of meat left on them, because if not, it's, you know, discs and pads, it's quite expensive. And people tend to not do these things as they come up to sell something, because they're like, sod it, let's pass that job on to the next person. Take a look at the tyres, see how much tread's left on those. You can't really do much about tyres being a bit, you know, a bit close to being worn out, but it's something worth noting. You can add these things up if you're starting to negotiate a deal. But another thing to look for in them is any uneven wear patterns, particularly on the rear. If you find that just something doesn't look centralised, like there is a slight flat spot on this tyre because it's a Maxxis, it's quite soft, and I'm doing lots of miles, and that's putting it in. But if that wasn't bang on in the dead centre of the wheel in line with the bike, I would have concerns that something's not in line. Then you want to check wheel bearings. The way you do this is you hold the bike this still and you try and move the front wheel backwards and forwards, and if the bearings are going, you'll feel the wheel knock within the forks as the bearing basically moves on the axle. That's not good. Well, it's not expensive to replace, but it's definitely something you would be concerned about. Check your fork seals and make sure there's no oil leaking on those. Make sure that they compress and spring back properly, because if they're completely out of oil, they may not have oil on them. So you want them to be firm and squidgy and to spring back, but it needs to be like hard down and then come back up, not like easy down and then twang twang like a pogo stick. That means there's no oil in them. Check headlights, make sure they're all functioning, go through all the lights and stuff to make sure that's all going. Check the brake fluid levels. Again, it's a sign of how they looked after the bike and how much they really thought of the thing. Check the rear suspension struts, see if that's got any misting or any oil leaking out of it, because that will mean that will need replacing. The exhaust that's on the bike, if it's an aftermarket exhaust, ask them where the number is on it if possible, because you want to make sure it's got a BS number on it, so it's legal. Some of them don't, they're sort of in a middle ground, but if it says not for road use on it, then, you know, it's not for road use. The BS numbered ones, very often, I think, legally require them to have the baffle in. You can take them out, but they legally require you to have them in. So just carry it under your seat or something. And then if the Mr. Policeman says, oi, that's a bit too loud, you can just go shunk. And then when he goes, you can go shunk. See if the sprocket teeth are nice and even and not waved over at all, or got broken, snapped ones. You don't want anything like that. Oh, another thing, check the headstock. Turn the bars side to side, hold the brake, give it a forwards and backwards wiggle, and see if you can feel any knocking that's within the headstock. Now the problem you will get is you will get a bit of knocking from the suspension. It will sort of feel a little bit like there is something going on there, but if the headstock's not right, it's not going to turn smooth, it's going to feel horrible, so that will be a problem. Turn it on, make sure it goes through all its checks, make sure there's no error codes here. We've got a place where error codes come up at 000, so as I understand that means it's just nothing. Make sure that it's cold when you get there. Check the engine's cold, because if they started it to keep it nice and warm before you get there so it starts up and doesn't have any problems, suspicious. So when you say I'm coming to view it, tell them I want it to be cold when I get there. So you can be there when they start it first time. You know, you want it to start happily, without constant trying and not sluggish or anything like that. You just want it to start. Then this is where the problem is. You're going to have to listen out for weird noises. And some bikes, they do make weird noises. Like a DRZ sounds like it's broken if you came from inline fours, because it's got a single cylinder. But if there's any obvious nasty clattering sounds, any struggling, if it's hunting, it's like boom, 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 once it's warmed up. That's another thing. You would ideally like them to run it until it hits operating temperature and the fan kicks in. If the fan kicks in, then you know that the engine hasn't been cooked by an inactive and not properly functioning coolant system. And then test ride it if you can, and just make sure that it's smooth and the brakes work and everything seems okay. But a lot of you who are watching this are probably looking at 125s, and you probably can't test ride it because you won't have the insurance that will allow you to ride other people's bikes. You very rarely get that. I don't think you can get that on the CBT. I think that's kind of the main things. Please feel free, people watching this, to add stuff in, because I'm definitely going to have forgotten stuff. You know, if I was looking at this bike myself, I wouldn't think about each bit. I'd just be doing it and check that and check that and check that. Wheel bearings on the back are the same. You give that a wobble, make sure that's all alright. Make sure it changes gear okay, because that means the gearbox is alright. Make sure the exhaust isn't leaking. And lastly, let's get going, because I've actually got to meet someone. I'm running late. Quiz them about the bike. Ask them questions. When did they buy it? What have they done to it? Have they done any work to it recently? When was it last serviced? If they say, oh, I did the servicing myself, that's difficult to prove, but that's fine, because a lot of us do that. Just see if they seem to be a genuine person, if they're avoiding questions or things don't completely add up. If you get a funny feeling about them as a person, you can happily walk away, because gut feeling will pull out a lot of things, because you can just tell when someone's not being genuine with you. They're being put on the spot, they're having to perform when you're there, they're trying to prove that this lemon they're trying to sell you is fine. Try and catch them out. I was looking at an SV that was on the Isle of Wight, but when I was looking for a second bike, and this perfect looking SV came up. It was a bit too cheap though, and that's another thing. I know you always want the cheap one, but careful on things that are a bit too cheap. It looked good, it said it was mechanically fine, everything, you know, blah blah blah, and it was about 4, 5, 6, 7, 800 pounds cheaper than I was expecting it to be. Well, when we started doing a HPI check on it, some things didn't add up, like the fact that it should have been bronze and it was white, and when I asked him about that, he couldn't really answer. There was also the fact that he said he just spent £700 on it, and I was like, okay, what was that for? And he said, oh, for this work, that work. And I went, well, when was that? And he went, 3 weeks ago. And I'm like, well, why are you selling it if you've just spent £700 on it 3 weeks ago? What it meant was it has gremlins which he didn't fix, and he was trying to get rid to try and limit his losses. Fool, he shouldn't have told me that he'd just spent that money on it. If you put £700 into a bike that you're selling for £1,000, you sure as hell know if you're selling it 3 weeks later, something's not right still. You can also look into the Mot history, and you can see if there's been recurring, what do you call them, advisories, things that people should have changed. And you can also see how many miles it did year on year. Now, the SV I was looking at didn't move more than about 400 miles in a year. Then this guy bought it because I knew when he was the large registered owner. That was like, you know, 2 months before he was trying to sell it. And you could tell it hadn't done a lot of miles in that time. So what it meant was the bike had gone wrong somehow. The person before had just given up and left it in their garage. He bought it thinking, I can sort that out, no problem. Put £700 into it, realised he wasn't fixing the problem, realised by that point he put so much money in, it was better to just sell it and be done, but rather than trying to continue fixing it and then sell it afterwards, because he would never have got the price for what he was putting into it. See what I mean? So this is where just doing a few checks, asking a few questions will lead you into knowing if your bike is going to be a bit of a lemon or not. Mechanical experience is very important. If you don't understand bike mechanics, you don't know what is right and wrong, there's nothing wrong with that, it's just you're inexperienced. If you've got a mate who knows what he's doing. And I don't mean a mate who thinks he knows what he's doing, because, oh, we all have mates like that. I mean someone who truly knows what they're doing. Get them to come and look at the bike with you. Because if it's your first bike, you're not going to know it, and you're just going to look at it and you're like, it's great, it's fantastic, oh, don't worry about that, don't worry about that, that's fine, that's fine. And then you realise a few days later, oh fuck, I bought an absolute shed. Oh, of course, check the cables, make sure the throttle's opening and closing smoothly, check the clutch cable's moving nice and smoothly. I think most of it's common sense beyond this point, you know? Can't think of anything else to add? No. But I am asking anyone out there who knows what they're talking about, please comment away, give your advice. I might learn some bits from you, you might have learned some bits from me. Everyone can learn from us if they don't know anything about this stuff, you know, it's a circle of learning. And hopefully, because of it, we won't get done with lemons. As godly and humble is the lemon itself as a fruit, no one wants to buy one as a bike. If you found this video helpful, please remember to subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it even. I have many other videos on different subjects, you know, from bike maintenance to what you should do here, or, you know, the common questions that new riders have, because I get asked them so much, I make videos to answer those questions, so I can just point you to a video. I tend to title them quite obviously, so if you search Spicy110 or go to my channel and just search channel with keywords like CBT, you should find the videos such as my how to do a CBT or what to expect in a CBT. So I hope that covers all bases, and thank you very much. Okay, so on. Charging. Well, just tell me it's already at 100%. I think what I might do is I might put some padding material or something in here so I can stick a device, you know, it's not going to get smashed around in there.